Welcome to Halifax Sports Talk. Andrew and Dayton with you, and we have a special episode for you guys today. We kind of teased it a bit, and now we are here to deliver. We've got a great guest joining us. We'll tell you who he is in just 1 second, but Dayton, good to see you as always, man. How are things?
Yeah, it's going good, Andrew. It's an interesting topic that we get to discuss today, something that came up on Twitter in the trending category a couple of days ago from Jeff Marek. Everybody should know that name. But yeah, Andrew, it's something that I'm a little bit interested in. It's something that I've never really got the chance to experience other than like watching the Memorial Cup per se. But yeah, that'll come up into talks, I believe. So yeah, it's going to be a good episode. Good little chat.
Well, I've been trying to be more active on our Halifax Sports Talk X account or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, whatever it might be. And of course, that day when I saw the Jeff Marek tweet come out, where Jeff Marek said, CHL News, sounds like the OHL plus QMJHL are working towards a 4-team interleague series between the Guelph Storm, Kitchener Rangers versus the Moncton Wildcats plus the Halifax Mooseheads for the next season. He did say still some hurdles, but they are getting there. So this caused a huge stir. This got a lot of attention from people, and it's an exciting topic to discuss because, Dayton, as you mentioned, we don't get to see these teams compete unless it's the Memorial Cup. So from my perspective, I was excited about that. And then I got to talk on Twitter for a little bit with our guest coming up here, Mike Farwell. And it was all in good fun, all friendly convo. For me, it was just the excitement of getting to see these teams play each other. But I'm sure he'll let us know that, hey, if these games mean something as far as points and standings, that's a whole nother ball game. So very interesting, and look forward to getting Mike's thoughts on everything.
100%. I'm interested to bring him on here. He just hopped in the room, so why don't we not waste any time and bring him right in?
Mike, how are you? Thanks for coming on with us.
Oh, guys, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Mike, the biggest reason we want to talk to you today, obviously, is because of the newest involvement. Obviously, something that Jeff Marek brought up, the QMJHL and the OHL, this little mid-season matchup. Obviously, us as Halifax natives, Andrew and myself, and you, the voice of the Kitchener Rangers, obviously have something to be interested in here. I want to know your thoughts just right off the bat. What do you think of this whole development? I know that you might not be too big on the points that might be up for grabs that are on the table here, but I just want to know your original thoughts just right off the bat.
First of all, it won't be my original thought. I'll start with the debt of gratitude that I owe the both of you. So a sincere thank you from here in Ontario to you down there in the Maritimes for reminding me that I probably take things like life in general far too seriously. Your very well chosen Joker, Heath Ledger gif. Why so serious? Well played, gentlemen. Well played. And even admitting that I probably do take things too seriously in life and in sports, I will go back to the original point and the original thought. And you alluded to it a little bit here. Look, I've been covering the Ontario Hockey League for about 25 years now. I love the game at this level. The idea of seeing some different teams is very appealing to me. But where I get stuck is where these games that these teams will play against one another are worth points in their respective league standings. And I just don't know why either of the leagues would wish to water down the points in that manner, because I'm not knocking, the Halifax Mooseheads or the Moncton Wildcats and their quality as junior hockey franchises. I'm just saying that if the Kitchener Rangers and Guelph Storm get the chance to play Halifax and Moncton, then everybody else in the OHL should get the chance to play Halifax and Moncton, because the points are available in the Ontario Hockey League standings. And I don't think it's right. And I said this last year when Sudbury was playing Rouen-Noranda and Ottawa was playing Gatineau. You can't make those points available in your league's standings to just two of the teams. The points are either there for everybody or they're there for nobody.
He is Mike Farwell, voice of the Kitchener Rangers in the Ontario Hockey League. And Mike, of course, it was all in good fun. I'm glad you appreciated that Joker thing there. It just, I wanted to ask you, from your circle and the people that you connect with and being involved in the CHL world, how did you find that announcement and that post from Jeff Marek on X ended up being received by people? You and I had some fun with it. We're so happy and grateful to have you on with us here today. How did you feel the rest of the media across the Canadian Hockey League saw that post? And, do people react the same way that you did? Or is it more like the same way you said, hey, look, I don't mind this, but the fact is, why are just these 4 teams getting to do it?
I would describe the reaction generally as mixed and leaning towards my side of this. Now, maybe that's just what the algorithms are showing me. Okay. But I was in a rink last night and this conversation came up, and that was in real life. And people were saying similar things to my point of view. That it's not across the board. It's not unanimous by any stretch. There are folks who look forward to these new matchups that we're likely going to get to see next season. But generally, we fall on this side of things whereby the points become available to just 2 teams, and that shouldn't be the case. And one of the other things that was pointed out to me last night that I think is a really good point, and that is that, look, we are very much connected to the game at this level, right? So obviously it's appealing to think, wow, I'm going to see some different teams and I'm going to get to watch the Moncton Wildcats and the Halifax Mooseheads. And for me, it's a great opportunity, likely next season, to go visit a part of our country that I love very much. And I'll get to spend some time out there. Great all around, but we are invested in this stuff. We're following the games night in and night out. Ask the average Moncton or Halifax fan, and forgive me not knowing enough about your league, but whoever their biggest rival is, would they rather see Halifax and Moncton play that biggest rival on any given Friday night? Or would they like to see Halifax or Moncton play these teams named the Kitchener Rangers and the Guelph Storm from a league 3 provinces away? I don't know. So I think we can get excited about it because, like, ooh, fresh matchups. Fans will be like, just give me my favorite rivalry. Like, who are these guys and why do I care? I think we have to think about that too.
I agree 100%, Mike. I know there's some differences. We actually just made a switch, or the QMJHL actually just made a switch last season to kind of abolish the divisions. And now we just have a East and Western Conference. And back when we had the divisions, the amount of times that the St. John Sea Dogs or the Cape Breton Eagles or the Moncton Wildcats would roll into Halifax over and over and over again, it would just get kind of boring. So, I mean, even throwing in like a random game against a Western Quebec team, having them come in like maybe 2 or 3 more times a season, balancing things out, like I know you guys have talked about, it might just be a little bit of a fresher look. And I think that is kind of just what the league needs. I know what they're trying to do by bringing these 2 different leagues together, and I'm not afraid of a little bit of change, but I do know what you're saying, and I do think that just a little bit of interleague play could solve the problem here.
I think you nailed it. And can you get that wiping out of the divisions over here to the Ontario League? Because we'll take it. I would love to see this happen. And this is what I think is one of the undercurrents of this whole idea. I think what the league is acknowledging is that it could use some refreshed matchups, right? My buddy Patrick McNeil, who calls games in Cape Breton, said something similar. And again, I don't know everything about your schedule, but based on what you just said, it sounds very similar. So we've got a weighted schedule over here in the Ontario League where you play your division opponents most often, then conference opponents the next most often, and the other conference you only see twice a year. We go there once, they come to us once. So there are teams that I will cover 8 times a year. Look, I love Owen Sound. I love Guelph. I don't need 8 matchups. And I don't think the fans do either. That means they're getting 4 games from one team out of their 34 home games every year. So I think what the league is actually acknowledging here is that it would be nice to have more matchups, freshen this up a little bit, re-energize the fan base. They could do that by just rebalancing the existing schedule without crossing across, going across the country to do it. And I wish they would take that step. It seems like they've gone 2 steps further down the path. They could accomplish the same thing by just wiping out the divisions and rebalancing their existing schedule.
Andrew McGinnis and Dayton Comeau, joined by Mike Farwell. So happy to have this conversation. I will add this: the competitive nature between the overall leagues. When you look at the Memorial Cup, I won't speak for you, Mike, but for me, no matter which QMJHL team makes it, when it comes down to Mem Cup time, I'm cheering for that Q team, here in Halifax. And you have that pride for the team you cheer for, but then there's the pride for your league. So I'm curious, during these, interconference battles, number one, will other teams be rooting for the Kitchener Rangers or Guelph or whoever it may be? But is there that battle and that pride? Because I think that one thing that we can all agree on is that everybody thinks their conference is the best. I through my work and other jobs that I've done, I've talked with people. They think the W is the best league. Physical, great play. And, the OHL producing guys like Connor McDavid, everybody thinks the OHL is the best league. And then we're biased with our Nathan McKinnons and Nikolai Ehlers and those guys. We think the Q is the best league. So do you think that as far as competitiveness goes and maybe becoming some type of more rival between the leagues, it's kind of a good thing to say, hey, no, the OHL is the best league. No, the Q is the best league. Maybe that's more of the competitiveness they're going for, because like I said off the top, the only time we get to see these teams play each other is the Memorial Cup. And you and I both know that tournament's not very long.
You are reading my mind on this, Andrew. And, I hate to date myself, but you run through those players, such a great list. I'm old enough to remember, okay, when the Kitchener Rangers hosted the Memorial Cup in 1984, and there was some guy from the Quebec League right in my city at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium named Mario Lemieux, who was playing in that Memorial Cup. Let me tell you what a treat that was for all of us then. On your point, though, about the Memorial Cup and whether or not fans from one league will, all of a sudden divisional opponents of the Kitchener Rangers in the Ontario Hockey League are going to cheer for Kitchener because they're playing that bad old team from the Q, and we want to show that Ontario is the best league. Yeah, there might be some of that because of the regional differences, but I think that bringing the Memorial Cup into this conversation is also important, because I would use this as another strike against the league and what it's trying to do here. One of the appeals of the Memorial Cup, I think, is it's the one and only time all season long that you get these firsthand viewings of the other league, your team. Let's see how your league's representative stacks up against the other leagues. The Guelph Storm, as Jeff Marek reports, likely to be involved in this interleague play next season, are the 2027 Memorial Cup hosts. So they're going to have Q teams in Guelph for the Memorial Cup in 2027. Why do you want to dilute that by getting them to play Q teams before the Memorial Cup even comes around? I'm not sure they thought it all the way through. I understand why they want to do this. I get the idea of energizing a fan base, giving some fresh matchups, but I think we're too many steps down the road. And I will bet you dollars to Ontario Donuts that the three of us care about this a whole heck of a lot more than your average fan sitting in one of our arenas.
I do have one thing to go kind of not to go back at it, but to counter that
Sure.
Memorial Cup statement. I know that it very well could water it down, having teams go through Guelph in the regular season and then go back for the Memorial Cup and say, hey, well, that team's already ran through here. Why are we going back to watch them again? I think that the biggest thing about the Memorial Cup was not just the fact that leagues or teams would come through and you get to see the firsthand viewings of the leagues that you don't usually get to see, but you get those stars. And actually, those stars are probably in the NCAA now. You look at the Gavin McKennas of last year, or say if Porter Martone was to make the tournament, or someone, you might still get like the Caleb Desnoyers from Moncton or the Jake O'Brien from Brantford, but there's not going to be that top tier talent. So I think ultimately that would also add another level of watered down to this tournament.
I think you're onto something. I got nothing in response, right? Which is why this becomes such a good discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, because I can absolutely see it both ways. And you talk about guys, like a Jake O'Brien, who I get to watch in this league so often, and we're happy to have him. But we talked earlier, just a moment ago, about like some of the really big names, right? Like the Nathan McKinnons and the Mario Lemieux and the Connor McDavids. Those players are the few and far between, right? Now, if we had a phenom, like, and I'm talking a flat out Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Mario Lemieux phenom involved in this little 4-team tourney, okay, now you're getting my attention, right? Because now fans in Moncton and Halifax are going to want to go to those games because the next Connor McDavid is playing for Kitchener or Guelph and vice versa. I just don't know that, as good a player as Jake O'Brien is right now, that he's going to move the needle in Moncton and Halifax were he to show up next year.
Mike, Dayton brought it up. He passed me the puck in the slot. I'm going to just try and put the puck in the net here with this one. The NCAA, the new rule that was brought into play, how has that impacted the Kitchener Rangers and the OHL as a whole? And what's your personal thoughts on all of this?
Oh, I have such a hard time with this, Andrew. Again, just going back to the length of time I've spent working in this league, and I love it. Gosh, do I love it. And I still think that the CHL and the Ontario Hockey League specifically is the best development league in the world. But this is really shaking the foundations. So to the question about how it's impacted the Kitchener Rangers, to be honest with you, so far, I would say, and I don't think you can even argue it, it's been a net benefit. The Rangers have benefited far more than they've lost from this rule change for now. But in conversations with our GM here in Kitchener and other GMs around the Ontario Hockey League now, they describe the situation as very fluid. One GM described it to me as complete chaos. If things are going a little bit sideways for a player with a certain organization, they'll just say, well, I'm going to go to the NCAA, pursue my options there. And our GM in Kitchener has talked a lot about roster certainty or roster uncertainty. As you guys would know, the junior hockey cycle, you're basically building in 3 or 4 year increments. And in that 4th year, you're looking to have a team that's going to be strong, make a run towards a championship, then you reset and go through again the next 3 or 4 years. But the Kitchener Rangers are a great example of this season deciding, you know what, we've got a pretty good team. We're going to put all our eggs into the 2025-26 basket and see what we can do, because we have no idea what's going to happen next year. How many of these guys are going to jump to the NCAA or whatever the next option might be? So it's really tough. You can sign a kid to a standard player agreement, or we call it a scholarship and development agreement now in the OHL at 16. And by 18, you might be thinking, here's our next 4-year guy. And 2 years after that, he might be jumping to the NCAA. They don't have the same roster certainty here anymore.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned about that roster certainty, and I did a little homework on you, watched some of the stuff that you've done, and I just love the passion for the community and the Kitchener Rangers, and it really seems like that's what it is with that team. And that's one thing that I have found with this new rule, and it's obviously so early on. It's great for the players, but for the community, I'll tell you, Mike, Halifax Moosehead fans, obviously known for one of the bigger fan bases and arenas here in the QMJHL. But one big thing is these fans fall in love with these players. They get to know them. You watch them as 16-year-olds develop. If they don't go to the NHL, they're there till they're 20 years old. So seeing some of these guys commit to NCAA, as you mentioned, does not feel like it's going to be that same 3 or 4 year development time anymore. So it's great for the players, but I feel like it's not as great for the fan base. And based on everything that I've seen with you and stuff you've said about your community and the Kitchener Rangers, do you get that feeling that with the community, though, even though you said they've benefited a bit from it, the community overall with some of these teams in the OHL could be impacted because they're not going to be able to kind of develop that bond with their favorite players?
Absolutely. I think you nailed it right there. And listen, I've been out to Halifax. I watched a World Junior tune-up game there back in, I think it was 2010, 2011, in and around that time. I love the market. I know how passionate the fans are. And I'm a really lucky kid here in Kitchener. I grew up in this town. I followed the team my whole life. I was the kid lining up at the grocery store to get autographs from the players when I was a kid. And that stuff still happens. These players, as you point out, the community really gets behind them, adopts them as their own. They become the hockey heroes of another generation, and then they could leave at any time. I think you're absolutely right, and we should make it clear. I do want the players to have options. When you're 16 years old and you're signing your name to a contract, That's a pretty big deal. All of a sudden, you're planning or deciding your next 4 years. That's a heck of a lot to put on a teenager's shoulders, no matter how mature he or she is. So I like the fact that the players have options. This increases their opportunity, but I do worry about what it means to franchises on the whole as we move forward. Like, give it 3 to 5 years, and I think we're really going to see the impact of this.
Mike, I just wanted to hop back just to the original topic, just for one last question. I saw some remarks and some replies in the original tweet from Jeff Marek, and one of the fans said, what about some preseason interleague play between all 3 leagues? And that way the points aren't up for grabs. And if one team wants to say, hey, we'll take our money and we'll spend our money and we'll go on the road for whatever it is, a week to 3 to 5 days, do you think that would work? Maybe say like the Halifax Mooseheads take a Edmonton, Calgary, and Red Deer road trip and go play the Oil Kings, Hitmen, and Rebels in the span of 5 days or something. I think that would be a little bit more reasonable than maybe a mid-season.
Couldn't agree more. I think a preseason showcase, the Kitchener Rangers, if you don't mind me using the example, but for a number of years hosted a preseason showcase at the Memorial Auditorium, great arena for it. They bring in 3 other teams and they all play each other once from Friday through Sunday evening, and the fans get to go to the games and everybody gets some, game action in one location preseason. I wouldn't object to a mid-season tournament, kind of like the NBA does now, but we know, like, the schedule being 68 games as it is, like, I don't know how you fit that in. My only question there, Dayton, is I'm trying to figure out the business model in all of this, right? Because for all 4 of these teams, it's going to be a significant expense for these road games, right? I know you guys travel. I got it. I'm soft here in the O. I get it. Your travel is way worse than mine, but there is an expense to this. So are these teams expecting to lose money? Or do they expect to break even? I don't know, but I'm super curious, and I might do some digging into the business model in this. And then, having said that, whatever the business model looks like for these games to happen during the regular season, I can't imagine the finances work if it's a preseason game where there's less interest anyway. So I would love to get a little bit more into the finances of this and see what the business model looks like.
Mike, I love that you mentioned you were that kid at the grocery store getting the autographs, grew up as a fan yourself, like, so full circle for you now to be the voice of the Kitchener Rangers. I did see that you moved out west for a little bit, but you returned home. But you were not always in the media world. Short stint as a teacher. Is that correct? Tell us about your journey to this spot you're in right now.
You don't want to hear anything about that. And the students that I taught also want to hear zero about the 1 year, I spent.
One and done.
My father was a teacher, and I figured this is what a real job looks like. So I'm going to follow in my dad's footsteps. I got my education. I started teaching, and I'm like, this is just, I don't know how he's done it for all this time. It was not for me. So I kind of did a bit of a reversal and went back to school, studied broadcasting, and the rest, as they say, is history. But let me tell you right now, I am and was a terrible teacher. Nobody wants to remember that stuff. I'm quite happy working in sports broadcasting and media to this day.
Last one I had for you. I wanted to just ask your favorite players. When you think of Kitchener Rangers, who do you think of? Gabe Landeskog, Nazem Kadri, maybe some under the radar players that Dayton and I wouldn't think of. But when you think of the Kitchener Rangers, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, you got to go. Well, you don't have to go way back because you talk about Landeskog and others. Mike Richards was unreal with this team and beyond. Brian Bellows, Scott Stevens, Paul Coffey, Al McInnes. I mean, all of these guys came through this team. And I just recently had the chance. So Brian Bellows was the era that I was a kid in and really growing up and coming of age as a Kitchener Rangers fan here in my town. And he was the second inductee into the new level of legacy that the Kitchener Rangers created. And let me tell you, even at this age and stage of life, I was completely starstruck with the opportunity to interview Brian Bellows on a broadcast. That's what he meant to me as a player. And he could not have been kinder as a person. Those guys will really stand out. Some more of the under the radar guys. I'd mentioned a guy like Jason Firth, who was a key part of a surprising Rangers run in the late 80s to that 90 Memorial Cup where they played against the Oshawa Generals and just a fantastic Memorial Cup final. I could run a long list for you. Jeff Skinner, of course, first guy in more than 30 years to score 50. I can still remember him stealing the puck at his own blue line with about 14 seconds left and going down and beating Jordan Binnington in the Owen Sound goal with a backhand for his 50th. I mean, there's been a bunch of guys. Jason Akeson tied for a scoring title with the Kitchener Rangers in 08, 09. And just one of those kids that you get to know when you're around the team, and formed a really strong bond with him. Lots of guys. I feel like I'm picking a favorite child now.
One more, actually. I got to ask one more. I came to my mind. I'm a huge Canadians fan.
Oh, no, come on, stop it. I can't even hear that team. Okay.
You got to tell me a little bit about this guy. Seems like a great guy in the community, an unbelievable story. Undrafted here, undrafted there. Tell us just a bit about Arbor. Do it for me as a Canadians fan.
I would love to, because you know what? Marek taught me this. We've been talking about Jeff's tweet that got all of this conversation going. Marek always talks about cheer for the story, not the game or the player, whatever it happens to be. And so this is a perfect example of that. Just so you know, the daytime radio show that I host, I'm a Leafs fan, and I refuse to allow people to mention that hockey team's name on my radio show. I call it the team that shall not be named. That's how much I still hold dear the rivalry between the Leafs and your goofy team. But Arbor Jacki, I remember being at a preseason game, and it was fun because instead of working, I was just there with my family, just watching. They enjoy hockey too. And I saw this kid, and I'm looking at my lineup, and I'm like, who's this guy? And I look it up, and of course I couldn't pronounce the name at all. I'm like, well, kid, enjoy your one preseason game here in the OHL, because we're going to be sending you back to junior B immediately following this game. He didn't have the skating. He didn't have the speed. He looked completely fish out of water. And then the season starts, and he's still there with the Kitchener Rangers. And I don't think he got 40 games that year by any stretch, but this was a guy that came to work every day. He brought the right attitude. He brought a willingness to learn. I remember watching him as one of the players that would be a healthy scratch more often than not after the game day skate or after a practice, doing extra work out there with the D coaches. And he put in the work, and he developed, you know the story, you alluded to it. So he's undrafted. He's a walk-on to the Kitchener Rangers, who I would have said goodbye to after the first time I saw him. Just didn't have it for this league. He earns his way through this league, undrafted to the National Hockey League, signed. It's a fantastic story. And I have just nothing but tremendous things to say, not just about Arbor, but his family as well. They are a tremendous group of people, and they're a great example of what hard work can get you, even in professional sports.
Mike, I had a roommate second year in Toronto, and he was from Elmira. And he was there watching the fight where Arbor Jacki turned into Aaron Asham, and he wouldn't let that go. He would tell me about that every time he saw me, and I just thought, you know what a moment. Arbor Jacki, what a player as well.
You know what, and the thing about that, look, I respect those who do not enjoy this part of the game, especially when it's young men, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it every day. These are healthy, strong young men. They are willing to do this. Mark Woolley, who was the combatant with Arbor Jacki in that particular fight, had taken some liberties with a young Kitchener Rangers team the last time they met, and even had gone by the Ranger bench to, basically say, hey, I own you guys, but Jacki was suspended at the time. So everybody knew that this fight was coming. Woolley was more than happy to engage in it. Did Arbor deserve his suspension for the little sleepy time? And sure, maybe, whatever, but oh my, what a tilt. And yes, I think anybody who was in the building that night will remember it for a very long time.
Mike, I'm so guilty of saying, hey, we're going to do this for 15, 20 minutes. We appreciate your time. Don't want to keep you too long. And here we are, almost a half an hour in. So just want to say thank you very, very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're doing our best to cover all the Halifax-based sports here. Relatively new podcast, Halifax Sports Talk, for anybody that's never heard of us before. And we really appreciate you coming on with us. So I just want to give you the floor. to tell people where they can find you and hear all your work.
Welcome to my world, guys. I always say 5-10 minutes tops, and the next thing you know, here we are. But this is what happens when you get some passionate people together to talk about something that they're passionate about. So I love it, and thank you for the opportunity. I host a little thing called the OHL podcast. I like to think that my partner, Dan Mahar, and I cover the league like nobody else can. I'm in every market traveling around this league. I've been doing it for a long time. So just look for the OHL podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You'll find us, and would be happy to have you along as a follower, a subscriber, to keep up with the goings on in our league over here.
Awesome. Well, Mike, we thank you for tuning in today, and we would love to have you back anytime. If anything kind of develops more in this situation, we'd love to have you back for another chat.
I would be happy to come along anytime. Just send me a note, and hey, when this happens, because when Marek reports it, it almost always happens. I'll hook up with you guys when I'm in Halifax, and the first beer's on you. Okay, we'll go to the lower deck. We're going to the lower deck.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Lower Deck and Alexander Keith's. That sounds good to me. And I never thought that sending you a Joker GIF on X would turn into this conversation, but I absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Mike. Take care.
I'm here for it, guys. All the best.
Mike Farwell, the voice of the Kitchener Rangers. What a chat. What a guest. We're very, very appreciative of him. And Jeff Marek with a tweet that just started all of this madness, Dayton, and here we are. So great points, great stuff by you as well. You know, I like how you said, hey, let's circle back here. We got to go back to the original point. And I think, I don't think he is bothered by them playing each other, but it's like you were saying to me before we started the show, it's more so about the standings. And, to Mike's point about these teams getting to play Halifax, but another team in the league not playing Halifax, why do these two teams have to play the junior teams, but nobody else does? So I feel like that's kind of the biggest concern, but really great to meet Mike, and a real nice guy.
Yeah, 100%. A great guy, great talker. I love the old style Cornwall Royals jersey that was hanging behind him in the background. He's a big Cornwall truther, and I think that would be a great team to expand to if the OHL ever does.
Well, we're excited because you know what? Having Mike come to town, having the Kitchener Rangers play the Halifax Mooseheads, the Moncton Wildcats, I think it's great for our league as a whole to see how each team stacks up against each other. If you are new to the channel, we are Halifax Sports Talk. I'm Andrew. He is Dayton, and we are here at least twice a week across YouTube, podcasting platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram, doing our best to cover things in Halifax and across the Maritimes. That will do it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Mike for joining us. We'll see you next time.